This programme was originally broadcast on Waterlooville's The Flash, 104.3 FM.
Hello and welcome. This is Fiona Ross on Waterlooville's 104.3 The Flash. And this is our Work Out Your Money local money programme run by Citizens Advice Havant. Let me tell you a little bit more about what we do. We bring financial education into our local schools, and we teach children as young as 6 and right into their college years about how to save, how to borrow wisely, and even how to be able to read and understand a payslip. All important life skills and the sort of stuff you can imagine will help them in the future. As well as school lessons, we run workshops for adults in the community, either as part of a group or one-to-ones. As you probably already know, we at Citizens Advice Havant help our local people regards to many issues, and claiming universal credit is just one. However, there's also the need to learn skills such as budgeting and how to save and borrow safely. This is where Work Out Your Money steps in. You could say we are the educational arm of our local Citizens Advice. So today on our Work Out Your Money programme, we are going to be looking at ways we can help our younger people who may have a pot of cash that they don't know about. This pot of money is called a child trust fund. The particular age group we are talking about today were born between the 1st of September 2002 and the 2nd of January 2011, so roughly aged 8 to 17. These government-funded child trust funds were given out in the form of vouchers with the aim of helping children to get into the habit of saving. The voucher was used to open up the child trust fund, and you could top it up over the years too. They could move the funds at 16 but not have access to the money until they are 18. The amount of money given out by the government will vary. It depends on household income and when you were born, as the rules changed. But some young people could have as much as £1,000, roughly. This is a significant amount of money to have access to at 18, and life-changing for some. Used wisely, think of it as being able to learn to drive, start a business, a deciding factor as to going to university or not, or put towards a future house deposit. There were 6 million of these child trust funds set up, but as many as 1 million of the 6 million funds, so that's 1 in 6 that were opened are classed as addressee gone away. So, in effect, they're lost. There's a strong possibility that our listeners may know someone in this 8 to 17-year-old bracket. They may well have a child trust fund and they are not aware of it. It's really important to know that this is possible to find your child trust fund even if you've never used the voucher. So how can you do this? That brings me on to our special guest. And I'd like to welcome Gavin Oldham, OBE and Chair of the Share Foundation, which is coordinating an awareness campaign around the issue. Hello, Gavin.
Hello.
So, we've been talking about child trust funds, but can you tell us more about the Share Foundation and what your charity does to help young people?
Well, I set up the Share Foundation in 2005, very much to help young people in care who had child trust funds then, to put extra money into their accounts. And I did that because I believe passionately in giving young people the best opportunity that they can have to actually achieve their potential in life. And to be able to start with something, which is what the Child Trust Fund's all about, and have a little bit of financial education alongside that, that's a great combination. So that's why I set it up. The government changed in 2010, and so although all those Child Trust Funds had been opened, the new government didn't want to carry on contributing. So the Share Foundation and Action for Children and Barnardo's all campaigned hard with the new incoming coalition government, and we managed to get junior ISAs in place for young people in care, and we put forward the Share Foundation to run that scheme, and we were accepted. And so since 2012 we've been running the whole junior ISA scheme for young people in care throughout the United Kingdom, working with 211 local authorities up and down the country. In 2017 we took over the Child Trust Fund administration from the Department of Justice, from the official solicitor. And so we've been looking after both schemes really for the last couple of years. And that means that we administer as registered contact about 40,000 accounts for young people in care. When we took over the Child Trust Funds for young people in care, we discovered that actually the scheme was in quite a state. And so we actually went to have a wider look, and we discovered that that is actually a common situation right across the country. So we've taken it on ourselves to very much recover the whole Child Trust Fund scheme. And we have a series of programs which are looking to make it easier for people, particularly for young people from disadvantaged homes, to be able to find their account, and to be able to use it as Gordon Brown originally intended, which was really to be a stepping stone into a better adult life.
There's an awful lot of work involved in that, isn't it? I mean, you've mentioned, how many accounts did you mention there?
Well, the number which we administer as registered contact is about 40,000. In the Child Trust Fund area, it's complicated by the fact that there's a different arrangement for those with a responsible adult, for those without a responsible adult, and we look after the ones without a responsible adult. And so it's part of that scheme, but it's still quite a big part. Yes. There's probably another 26,000 which are looked after, should be being looked after by a responsible adult somewhere. We actually are very concerned that large numbers of those have gone missing to the families or to the young people concerned as well.
Thanks for that background, Gavin. It's really interesting. So, this is Fiona Ross on our Work Out Your Money programme. I'm talking to Gavin Oldham from the Share Foundation today, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about the Child Trust Fund scheme and how it works.
Well, the scheme was set up back in 2002. It was actually announced. The first accounts were actually opened in 2005 because it took them a couple of years to get the arrangements underway. And Gordon Brown set it up so that most families got £250 voucher to go and open an account. And if you were a family in receipt of child tax credit, you got a £500 voucher. So quite a good initial start on that. If you hadn't actually opened an account with an account provider within 12 months of the baby's birth, then the HMRC, Inland Revenue, would go and open an account for you, and they're called revenue allocated accounts. And out of the 6 million plus accounts that had been opened, about 1.7 million actually were revenue allocated, and that's where the main area of lost accounts are, really, in that area. The first thing to say is that all these accounts are safe. They're all being run by account providers up and down the country. There are 59 in all, but 14 of them are revenue allocated account providers, and they hold a significant number of the lost accounts. And that's why in that area, that's where we put the real focus. They're all being run properly. Many of them are invested in the stock market, and so they've made quite a lot of progress in terms of their value over the years. There are about 1 million out of the 6 million which families deliberately chose to open as cash accounts. They have not made so much progress because interest rates have been so low. But the revenue allocated account ones all went into stock market investments, and so they've made good progress. Overall, the government put in about 3.3 billion into the scheme. The investment growth is another 3 billion. And in the wealthier end, there were families who put in extra money, about another 3 billion. So overall, we're talking about a scheme which is worth over 9.3 billion across over 6 million accounts. It's a huge scheme, 6 times larger than the number of junior ISAs that there are in existence. It is vast.
Incredible. Yes.
And every child who becomes adult from next September 2020 for the next 8 years who was born in the United Kingdom will have one of these child trust funds. And so I think it's absolutely critical that they are found. Now, we reckon that there are as many as 2 million, actually, which are lost to the families concerned, about 1 million which are addressee gone away, and about another 1 million where, although the family was told to go and register with the account provider, they never did do that. They're what's called unregistered contacts. So we think it's about 1/3, something like that. And the greatest area of loss is with the poorest families. They tend to have quite valuable accounts. On average, it could be £1,500 for an older young person, so that stage. The key thing is that a young person can take control of the account at the age of 16. They can't take the money out at 16, but they're allowed to access their money at 18. And the oldest young person with a child trust fund will turn 18 on the 1st of September 2020. And so it's coming up very, very soon now. And we're determined that many of those can be found over the period ahead. So that's why in the Share Foundation we've set up a major recovery program which will roll out right across the country in order to help people to wake up the scheme. It's like a sort of sleeping beauty at the moment.
It is, isn't it?
And it needs somebody to go and wake it up and actually help people to realise they've got this money sitting there.
Now, Gavin, you mentioned a really interesting point there about revenue allocated accounts. So where somebody hasn't actually invested their initial voucher, it's been done for them and done safely. Can you tell us how somebody would actually find their lost account, Gavin?
Yeah, the key point to make is that all these accounts are safe. They're all looked after by account providers, and they are all safe. So even if they're revenue allocated, they're individual accounts in the child's name, and they're all being looked after properly, they're all being invested properly. The key thing is to find out where they are. Now, the thing is that the HMRC has tried to do their very best in this area to put something forward for this, and they've set up within the government gateway the ability of finding your child trust fund. We felt it was actually, quite a difficult process to go through, so we've actually built a landing page on the internet so people can go and find out about it first and then go into it afterwards. And that's called, you can find it under tiny.cc/find in lowercase, CTF in uppercase. So tiny.cc/find CTF. And that is a sort of easy way through to find out how to approach the government gateway. You will need to get into the government gateway methods of identification. Now, they could be a passport, or they could be, P60 or something like that. Generally, it's easier for adults to open their way into the government gateway than it is for young people. And so, if you're hearing this program as a 16-year-old and saying, "Where is my money?" the first thing to do is go and ask your parents about it, because they would normally be the registered contact and they would know about this account. If they say, "I don't know anything about it," and you want to go and look for it yourself, then go under tiny.cc/find CTF and read through it carefully and find out what you have to do. And then you'll go into the government gateway. And in most cases, the HMRC will tell you which account provider it's with. When they've told you which one it is, then you obviously have to approach that account provider. We provide on that landing page all the telephone numbers for the account providers, and so you can go in and make contact. They will want to have forms of identification. They want to check that you are who you say you are, and they will finally put you in touch with your child trust fund. And if you're age 16, you're allowed to control that account yourself for the next couple of years. And so there'll be a few choices that you have in front of you. But that's how you go about finding it.
It was interesting to hear about what 16-year-olds can do with their child trust funds and accessing them. Can you give us a little bit more information about what they can do?
Well, let's say you've actually successfully found your child trust fund, and as a 16-year-old, you're actually thinking, well, what do I do with it next? The key thing is to think about what you're going to do with the money in a couple of years' time when you get access to it. Do you want to leave it invested so it can form the sort of beginning of a savings or investment area which you can build on as you go to work and you earn money to add to it, from that point of view, in which case you might want to leave it in the investments that it's in. If you're likely to draw the money out, you might think about switching it into a cash account at this stage, because if you did that, then obviously you'd avoid any risks of the market going into sort of more volatile period in between. You might be adventurous and want to start actually taking control of the investments yourself, in which case you can actually have a self-select child trust fund, and you can learn about having shares and funds to actually put within your own account and find out what it's like to run your own account. Or you could switch it into a junior ISA. So there's a number of things that you could be doing. What I would suggest is that it's really important indeed to find out what find out about that. Do your research before you start actually moving money around.
Yeah.
So we have got a scheme called Managing My Money, which is an Open University course, helps you to learn all about money. And in fact, it's got a very good section on investment within it. If you look under tiny.cc/mmmoney, that's all lowercase, so tiny.cc/mmmoney. And this is an 8-week course from the Open University, but we've set it to radio, so it's all in audio, and you take a little test at the end of each week, and that test you can actually build up your knowledge about how to look after your money, and then you get a certificate at the end, which you could put on a CV and use to help find a job. So that's a good way of doing it. If you want to run your own account, then the Share Centre, which is one of the CTF account providers, actually runs a practice account. And so you can actually open a virtual account with shares in it, £15,000 of notional money. You won't lose a penny in real terms, but it is very, very helpful to learn what you're doing before you start moving money in real sense. And so do some research and work closely, I would say, with your organisation, Fiona.
Yeah.
Because you're giving a lot of guidance on this whole issue about how to handle money properly yourselves, aren't you?
It's a very good point, actually, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. You mentioned about getting the word out there. Now, we've signed up to be ambassadors for the Share Foundation, and because we're already in a lot of schools in our area, and we're actually planning to go into Alton and Havant and South Downs College shortly. How can ambassadors help you in terms of spreading the word?
Well, this is a really important part of waking up the scheme, and we're so pleased, Fiona, that you've actually joined up as a CTF ambassador on this. What we've done is to set up a website which is ctfambassadors.org.uk, which invites people to come forward and make arrangements to go into their secondary schools all across the country and to wake up the Child Trust Fund by giving talks and handing out leaflets and dispensers, one for each young person, and really giving a chance for young people to hear about this scheme, because it's thought that only about a quarter of young people actually feel that they've received anything in the way of financial education by the time they left school. And so it's so important to actually have this role of going into schools and actually trying to explain what the opportunities are. For a lot of young people, because the Labour government which set this up originally is sort of long gone, as it were, and we've had the last 9 years of governments under the coalition and the Conservatives. People have moved on in their thinking to think about junior ISAs maybe, or they're thinking about other investment products. And so, Child Trust Funds has really been almost sort of forgotten over this period, and that's why so many are thought to be lost to the families concerned. So actually this process of waking it up is vitally important. We're actually printing out leaflets which we're going to send out into every secondary school across the United Kingdom. We're just at the start of the programme at the moment, so we're sending out about 60,000 over the next a couple of months, and that will build on from there, and we hope that will develop the number of CTF ambassadors who can go in and talk about the scheme as well, and introduce those young people into finding out more about the life skills they need to be able to control money as an adult. And so the whole process is really designed to do that.
Oh, that's perfect. That's an awful lot of leaflets to give out. And actually, the good thing is, in our local area, we've actually got those dispensers and we've got those leaflets. So we're going to be going into those schools, so our local schools in this particular area, and we're going to make sure that every child there has access to that information. So actually seeing a poster or seeing a leaflet hopefully will start getting them to think about what we're doing. And also, when we actually do our personal finance workshops in our local schools, we'll mention the Child Trust Funds as well.
Well, thank you so much for that. I mean, it is going to be so helpful to do that. And, for a lot of families, £1,500, which is, as I say, the average value of a child tax credit family young person, is quite a lot of money. I mean, generally you might find accounts be worth a bit less than that, because it depends how long the account's been open for, how old the child is, and also whether the scale of the government contribution in the first place. And on top of that, it's also down to things like how the money was invested. And generally, in the market, it's done quite well, but if they're in cash account, it won't have done quite so well. Yeah. So, it's very difficult to say that your account is worth X, Y, Z, but I'm sure people will realise that these things do vary a bit over the years in between.
No, that's
right.
But
the accounts are looked after safely. That's the important thing.
Well, that's good. And it's a sizable amount in most terms anyway as well.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so we're back, Gavin, to summarise the main points of what we were talking today about with Child Trust Funds. What would you say they are?
Well, I think to begin with, to find out more about the Share Foundation and what it does, we have a website, sharefound.org, and that will tell you mainly about our work for young people in care throughout the country. But if you scroll down on the whole page, you'll find a lot of information about Child Trust Funds there, including a video of a debate on Child Trust Funds, which was led by Helen Goodman, MP for Bishop Auckland, back in March. You won't have heard about it on the news because there's been so much Brexit stuff coming out that there's not been all that much time for anything else.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah, that's right. But it is a great debate. It's all there, 30 minutes, and it's well worth listening to. There's a couple of websites I've mentioned as we've gone through the programme, and the first is about finding your Child Trust Fund. And that's a really helpful one because that's the one which will help you to get into the government gateway and find out where it is. So that is tiny.cc/find CTF, find in lowercase, CTF in uppercase. The other important website in that regard is the one Managing My Money, which will help you to learn all about how to develop your life skills and find out more about handling money as you become an adult. And that is tiny.cc/mmmoney, all lowercase, tiny.cc/mmmoney. Okay, and finally, if you're somebody who would like to become a Child Trust Fund ambassador, as you are, Fiona,
yes,
then I would propose going into our ctfambassadors.org.uk website. That's ctfambassadors with an S on the end, .org.uk. And it'll tell you all about child trust funds, what you need to do as an ambassador, and there's a registration form on there as well. And so that's the other resource which is really helpful to know. So lots of resources online, just go and have a look.
so there's actually information there for parents, for children and for ambassadors as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Brilliant. So this is Fiona Ross, and I've been chatting to Gavin Oldham at the Share Foundation, which has been very interesting. Thank you, Gavin. And you've been listening to us on The Flash.
This programme was originally broadcast on Waterlooville's The Flash, 104.3 FM.